seeing multiple blunders by Magnus Carlsen in a time scramble is not something that we do often, but we have to show that. I know you're pulling it up. We got to show the final moment there. That was crazy.
First, let's show this position, because bishop e5, we were talking about how a rook was trying to pin. Now there is knight b3 or c2, doesn't matter. Check to the rook, but also check to the king, winning material on the spot. This is, as basic as it gets for these high-level players. But later in the game, it got tricky, and Magnus Carlsen, somebody who typically does not blunder. I mean, this part of the game here, it seems like, okay, things should be even because you are trying to get behind the pawn, but it feels like you're taking too much time. The reason king g5, it losing the spot, is after this check, king h4, and actually this king has two choices, Danny. King f4 is tempting, but king f5 might be even better because the pawn's under attack with check, and if g3,
it made on
you've
h8.
made,
Wow.
You took away your escape square, and the king is cut off, the white king is in perfect place, and the e-pawn is rolling.
Wow. Obviously, you don't see mistakes like that by Magnus Carlsen every day. But you know what else? Not everyone converts on those opportunities against Magnus, and Arjun did. That's super important to note here, because Magnus will make mistakes in these long matches. And what you and I have talked about so many times over the years is that you don't get many shots at the king, so you best not miss. How many times do we see him kind of get away with it, right? But he didn't get away with that there. Arjun keeps it close, and Magnus has got to be thinking about that one.
How could you not? And he's probably kicking himself. He's probably just really frustrated with, how could I lose that position of all positions, especially when he was the one with the healthier pawn structure and a good bishop against a knight that was sort of wandering all over the place. So that's neither here nor there. That's in the past, the moment. And as I look at this game, Danny, I've always liked these positions from the white side. There's something about these pawns on c4 and e4 that just make me happy. And also that black can't easily take, because then you isolate your own queenside pawns.
Yeah, sorry. Great positional lesson there. I was still replaying that rook ending in my head at that moment where I wasn't present. My apologies. Yeah. Anyway, the one thing you'll say for Magnus is turning it around on the clock, right? This game has quickly become one where he's like, all right, wake up here. He's got an advantage with f4. He's threatening to play f5. Don't underestimate the kingside attack that could be underway here soon. And he's also playing quickly on the clock.
It's hard for black to make moves in this position. He does take on e4,
yeah,
and you see the evaluation immediately goes in white's favor. There are long-term consequences of this decision. There also could be short-term consequences if you blunder checkmate on these diagonals. So be very, very careful if you're Arjun Erigaisi, because this looks scary.
Did you just go double bishop sacrifice throwback? Did you do it? Let's do it. Come on. It makes me smile. Bishop takes e4. And then let's make a move and make it happen. I mean, bishop takes h. Does it work? Let's do it. You check on h5, take on g7. The rook comes to d3. Okay, it doesn't work. I don't care. This is a famous sacrifice. You got to know. Probably because bishop e4 just stops everything.
But it does look scary for black. So it's one of these things where you may believe that it's a threat, so you change your strategy. But as you're saying, like, the bishop can come back around and block on g6. But these things get scary. And in the game continuation, we see bishop takes e4, rook a to d8. And you know that Magnus is looking in this direction of the double bishop sacrifice, Greek gift style. He wants it, but he can chill a little bit. He just has a nice strategic position as well.
Well, you saw his eyes kind of light up there, and now we've seen him lean in a little bit. He's surely calculating this, which means the difference, by the way, is the pawn hasn't moved to c5, so there's no bishop e4 roundabout. So it's not as immediately clear. And remember, there's tricks in those double bishop sacrifices where you check on g4 first and force the king to the h file and then the rook lift. But okay, we'll get out of our heads, and in the moment, Magnus plays rook d3, which directly threatens bishop takes h7.
It's all relevant. People may see, oh, that move was a blunder. How could they suggest that? You should always suggest ideas. There's no harm in that. Even when you're playing a game of chess, you should be thinking, wait, do I have this bishop sacrifice? Okay, clearly doesn't work now, but what needs to change to make it work? And oh no, this is just strategic misery for Arjun Erigaisi. There's a pawn here that is weak and targeted. There's a pawn here that is weak and targeted. The bishop is loose, so that pawn can't move easily. a5 is a target. Danny, I'm looking at this position, and he played queen e5. It's not even just about winning this pawn over here. Black can hardly move. You're getting squeezed.
Yeah, this is painful. Some losses feel worse than others. This is painful. Still got to be thrilled with the victory he stole in the last game if you're Arjun, but you don't want to rebound or follow up a game like that with one like this. So, like, it feels even worse than it is, or it looks even worse than it feels. I don't know. I mean, is the knight coming to c5 right away? Indeed, he does, because there's knight d7 ideas, and you want the rook to come to d7 with mate on g7 eventually.
Oof. The bishop's hanging. If it goes to c8, c6 falls. If it goes to a8, well, your bishop's on a8. That ain't great. But also the e6 pawn in some of these positions is hanging. So I like your knight d7 idea. I wonder if it's worth making luft for the king just to run away. Yeah. But the king can always slink out to g3. He goes h3.
Profit.
So yeah,
ring. Danya called. Prophet called. Wants his prediction back. All right, rook d6.
I was just drawing with arrows that this rook could have just tried to gather this pawn on a5 and gone to a7, but look at this. It's just positional dominance. e6 drops. The king on e8, excuse me, on g8 is in a world of hurt. It's hard to look at this position.
And the luft you talked about proving more critical than ever. No worries about checks from the black queen. You could even just take a. You don't want to let him get the c4 pawn, so maybe Magnus wants something more concrete. But you could take a4 and give up c4, still in control.
Totally, and play rook e7 or something like that. There's a bishop on a8. It's just not doing anything. It's staring into its own pawn. So Magnus type of move, bishop d1 to b3, in some universe, that might be in the cards, but rook e7 is simple.
King h2, and then your idea is really on the agenda, because that's what he plays. Don't look out for bishop d1 coming. So the king runs off the diagonal. f5 is hanging with check. Magnus didn't even take it. He could have.
But he wins more.
Okay. Well, that was dominant.